Okay, the microphone works. Hello, everybody. Welcome. You're all very welcome to this very first event for the Digital Tourism Think Tank here at World Travel Market. We're very pleased to be here. And huge thanks also to the team at World Travel Market for making this happen. Today's short session is going to be called the DMO Debate. And we have brought an excellent panel of very distinguished guests with us to debate key topics that we feel are affecting DMOs today. So I'm going to introduce them in just a moment, but I'm going to start by introducing the think tank and telling you a little bit about what we do. Good, a good number. So the Digital Tourism Think Tank is an initiative that we've started with Yahoo and TripAdvisor and iFit and many other partners to create a platform for tourist boards to exchange knowledge and best practice on digital tourism marketing. This is something that we realize is an area that needs to be covered more and more. And we try to fill that gap by creating knowledge and exchange between industry professionals. So heading straight onto our very distinguished panel. First of all, I'd like to introduce Helena Egan, Head of Destination Sales for EMEA for TripAdvisor. Helena comes with a wealth of experience, previously working in marketing roles at Visit Britain, Travel Weekly, and over the last 5 years has built up a very strong team that specialize in DMOs at TripAdvisor. And I'm sure many of you have already met Helena in the past and have seen her. So very welcome. I'm not going in order of the panel here because I'm going in order of the slides. So you'll have to excuse me for that. Towards the end of the panel here, we have William Price. He's our DMO on the panel, who's going to be hopefully answering back to some of the comments and perhaps criticism on the topics which are coming up. William Price is in charge of e-marketing at South Africa Tourism. He does an amazing job. He's developed the current digital strategy, but you've really worked within the whole organization to bring it up to that digital know-how that they need. Very impressive work that you've been doing there. Alex Bainbridge. Alex Bainbridge is a contributor to Tnooz. So I'm sure many of you have read Tnooz and follow their activities. Very thought-provoking and somewhat provocative, I've been told, contributor to this debate. So I'm looking forward to that. And he's a leading keynote speaker, but also CEO of TourCMS. So you're very welcome. We have Demetrius Bouhalis at the end of the table here. Demetrius, lively character, most of you know well. Demetrius is president of the International Federation for IT, Travel and Tourism. That's iFit for those of you who perhaps didn't know the words behind it. And he comes with a wealth of experience, widely published, also professor, touring professor around the world. So if you want to know more about Demetrius, I think you can follow him very closely on Facebook. And then we have Aviva Pearson. Aviva Pearson has been a partner of ours since the very beginning. And Aviva is Director of Business Development at Simpleview. She comes with a wealth of experience also working with DMOs. She's worked in the UK, although being an American. She's worked as a director of 4 DMOs in the UK. And you're very welcome to be joining us as well. So, how are we going to start this debate? Well, I want to make sure that we give as much time as possible to our panel and also to the audience to ask questions and to discuss the topics that we think, and our panel has also come up with together, that we think are the most important topics that DMOs need to be thinking about today. I'm going to start by introducing and presenting, and this really is fresh off the press today. So I'm going to start by introducing and talking about a survey that we have done with European Cities Marketing, who are also one of our partners. We actually surveyed 40 different marketing directors from all of the European cities out of all the 100 members that we actually went to. And they told us what their feelings were about digital, the challenges they were facing, the opportunities that they saw, and really gave us a deep insight into the day-to-day work of a marketing director from a European city tourist board. So today we're not going to present the whole research. You'll have to join us at our next event in Barcelona if you want to see that. But we're going to start by introducing the topics to be discussed today by looking at the key findings. So the first question that we thought was a really interesting point to start with was to ask which of these factors are most impacting destination strategies today. And somewhat surprising for me, the economic environment was still a major factor, with almost 40% feeling that that was the most important factor impacting the destination strategy. Perhaps somewhat less surprisingly, mobile and social were also proving to be, perhaps we could say, disruptive in DMO strategies today. So we also asked what their main strategic priority for the year was. And many put that all into one bundle as overall digital strategy, the vast majority. But still many thought that the figure that I want to focus on here, which I was quite surprised at, is their branding strategy is fairly low in terms of priority. And this is just to give you an idea of how big those tourist boards are. Out of that sample of 40, the vast majority have under 50 people, most being 10 to 25, well, actually most being 25 to 50 persons in the tourist boards. So they're quite small compared to some of the national tourist boards. So I think I want to first of all go to William, as I know you also have to leave us slightly earlier on this panel. What's your reaction to those figures?
The figures are always going to be things that we need to pay attention to, but the most important thing is understanding the insight behind it. Figures are always going to just give us a snapshot of the information that we're asking about. So I always worry that we ask the wrong question. And as I said to you earlier today, and may get me into trouble, but I think DMOs are stupid. And
can we quote that?
Yeah, you can quote that.
So could you just say that again?
Yeah, let's say it again. So I believe that DMOs are stupid. And I say that because if we don't understand where the consumers are and what the consumers are doing and what it is they're after, and we continue on after our own agendas and our own marketing plans, we get ourselves into the trouble we find ourselves in. And so we're running a race that we can never beat. We can never catch up to the consumer, and that to me is the big problem that we're faced with. So times are changing, we're not changing quick enough.
And as a national tourist board, what are your key strategic priorities? What's the most important thing for you?
We have to grow arrivals. We have to get more people to come to South Africa. That's the bottom line for us. So we have 5 other key objectives that we look at: increasing spend, increasing spread, combating seasonality, making sure that we can actually transform the tourism industry as well. And then getting more value out of those tourists that come to South Africa. And of course, because we're a long-haul destination, we have all those perceptions that come with it. The fact that we're far away from everywhere else in the world, the fact that we are at the tip of Africa, people perceive us to be expensive and not to be safe. In spite of the World Cup and all the great work that we did there, those are the things that we have to deal with. And unfortunately, when we try and put those things into general old-school way of marketing, we fail just about every single time because of the fact that we're forgetting that the consumers changed so much, the textbooks haven't. So that's why I come back to the previous statement, which I'm happy to be quoted on.
Helena, you're working with hundreds of tourist boards, small and large. And so I think the question of what is the biggest challenge that they're facing today is quite something you will have a good understanding of. Is it surprising that the economic difficulties still proving to be one of the biggest issues?
I think that's the key. Can you hear me? I'm loud anyway.
Yes, you have to speak directly in.
Yes, I'll speak directly. One of the keys is I think there's still, and I think William and me have been talking a lot about this as well, there's still the need of when you have a small marketing budget as a tourism board, there is a huge urge and need for the nation to see that you're doing something. So we work a lot with Italian tourism boards, small regions, and they have to spend a lot of them as part of their campaign in a local radio, so that the local public knows that their tax money is actually going to promoting the region. So I think the expectations, rather than looking at, like William's saying, looking at where the consumers are, what the consumers, how they are consuming the information from the destinations, which should be very inspiring for them, putting that into place is just to having to prove that to whether it's the minister himself or whether it's the board. And I think that's a challenge, and that's I think with digital we're all facing, because the traditional media is still there. I'm not saying it's not important, but sometimes it's done for wrong reasons.
Yeah. And Alex, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Where do you think technology comes into play if DMOs are facing the economic difficulties that they're facing?
Well, DMOs should not be measured by their economic response. They should be there to do things that doesn't have an economic return, because that is why they get government money. Entrepreneurs are there to do things that have got economic return. DMOs should be there for doing things that don't have economic return.
Okay, is that something you would agree with, Demetrius?
Yes, I think the important thing is really to understand what the DMOs are there to do. And most of the DMOs have got many different stakeholders, and they are trying to please far too many people. And their boss is primarily the politicians. So they are not focused on the needs of the customers and the tourists, and they are not focusing on how they are going to bring tourists to South Africa or wherever. But they are focusing on satisfying the needs of the minister. And that is a different way of looking at these things, because their priorities are different from what the industry wants and from what the actual consumers want. So it's all about looking into how you bring all these different needs and priorities together to make sure that you serve the purpose. But 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a DMO, the first thing that they've got their priorities is totally wrong, because they are focusing on totally the wrong things.
Aviva, having headed up 4 tourist boards, you surely have a take on this, having to report to many different political stakeholders. So what's your experience of this been?
First of all, how many reporters are in the room? Okay. I guess, when... thank you. What William said before is it's actually interesting, because I would say if DMOs are stupid, they're stupid on steroids when, you have politics involved. And that's the thing. I mean, we could... this is such a difficult conversation. We could talk about this particular topic for all day. And we're also passionate about it. But the thing is that, we all have to bring back to the essence of what we all do here, and that's basically making sure that we draw visitors to each one of our destinations. But the problem, then, I'm going to just take the politics out of this for a minute and kind of segue over to the fact that visitors don't understand a lot of the demarcation between very close destinations. And so therefore what you have, which this is where a lot of the politics overlays on each other, you'll have 2 regions or cities or areas that are right next to each other, but a DMO can only market this is the boundary, but the visitor doesn't understand that this is the boundary. They want to go 5 miles out, but because of politics they're not allowed to market maybe the hotel that's 2 miles out of the boundary. And of course that doesn't help a visitor when they're doing their visitor journey. We all understand the visitor journey. I'd like to think that everyone here at World Travel Market, that we all understand tourism and travel, the visitor journey. They're interested in doing things, making itineraries. And in order to do all this kind of stuff, you look at what the product is there, and you might actually make a decision not to go to a particular area because for some reason, when they were doing their strategy, for one reason or another, some of it political, they didn't concentrate on one thing, but it is there, and it's prevalent in that destination, but then they choose not to go. But maybe it's in the destination that's 5 seconds down the hallway, so...
Interesting. So do you think that there should be more tourist boards coming together then, Aviva, to market themselves together?
Yes.
Okay, very clear answer. So we asked our panel what topics they would like to see discussed today, and this is where we decided to focus on out of what what came in. It's just gone completely from my screen. So the topics that are already touched on that quite well, and return on investment. Socializing CRM, that's going to be an interesting topic that I'm interested to see your views on. And ultimately, what is the DMO role now in the visitor buying cycle? Has this fundamentally shifted? So I'm going to go on and look through some more of the results that came out of this survey. Now, this one may come as somewhat of a surprise. We asked how important measuring return on investment was to the DMO, and thankfully the majority said very important. However, quite a smaller number said quite important, and actually some of those said not important at all. So in the second part of this, we're really going to follow up with those to get a much deeper understanding of why they don't think that's important. But is that just an initial reaction? Does that surprise you guys?
Does what surprise us? The fact that this was the answer?
Yeah.
William, go on.
Who here expected all respondents to say that they've thought ROI was very important? Put your hand
ROI,
up.
it should be important. ROI should
Yeah.
be definitely something that's key and that people want.
Look, I mean, to make this debate interesting, the question needs to be asked, do they understand the question in the first place?
Exactly. What is ROI for a destination? Is the
if-
ROI
yeah.
what William's saying, which is the bottom line? How many people visited the country? How much, how much?
Yeah.
Well, what was the increase year on year?
That sort of corresponds with the next question we asked, which was how they're measuring ROI. And overnight stays was overwhelmingly the most important way to measure that. So I think then that presents a challenge for digital and how DMOs can actually show that what they're doing in digital is bringing people to the destination. So how do you think a DMO has to actually demonstrate that ultimate figure? Being a key thing that their stakeholders are looking for, and also increase traffic to social media profiles and websites. So these are the really important things that the stakeholders need to see. How can they work with digital to actually to bring those results, or is that not the question? Should they be working on a different educational basis?
Well, if you take a couple of those individually, if you go to a destination, it might be a destination you will only ever go to once every 3 years. It could be a once-in-a-lifetime, that cliched phrase, destination. So why would you want to be on a newsletter? You're not going to go back to that destination again. It is no use. That is a metric that is completely pointless. So that is something, if you're doing that and you're one of those destinations that you only go to once every 3-4 years, that is not the metric you should be measuring. Room nights. If room nights, again, this is something that Expedia, Booking.com can do better than the destination. There's no point even trying to compete with Expedia and Booking.com on room nights. You may as well just I'm not saying throw in the towel. I'm saying you need to just work alongside them and help them promote your destination better, not try and compete with them. I was at a tourism conference in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and Visit Denver's main thrust was, why is Google sending traffic to my suppliers' websites? Why are they going to the hotel website and the tour operator's website directly, not to Visit Denver's lovely crafted pages explaining about the hotels and the tours? Well, the answer is, of course, Google's going to send the traffic to the supplier directly. So if the DMO is measured on room nights, that's going to be a pretty inconsequential metric as well. So I think actually there's a lot of problems with people will always optimize what they're being judged on. If they're judged on room nights, they'll optimize on room nights, and that will lead probably down to the wrong strategy. So the very first thing that you need to do when you're looking at ROI is work out what should you be measuring. For example, one of the things that I would like to measure is whether or not people had happy memories of the destination subsequent to their visit. Now, is that something, how would you measure that? That's a much harder thing to measure, so it doesn't get measured that often. But it's one that's more valuable than measuring room nights. But room nights is easy because you collect room tax. Room tax pays for the DMO, so of course you're going to measure it. But memories, that's what people are trying to generate. We should learn how to measure memories, happy memories.
William, how are you doing that at South Africa Tourism?
Which part?
How you? Well, we know the end goal is to bring people to South Africa.
For me, just again, I think for this discussion to be interesting for people, my question is, what is the role of a DMO? If tomorrow South African tourism ends, does that mean that people will stop coming to South Africa? And I think the answer is no. And that to me is where a lot of the kind of thinking needs to go in, because if we I mean, think about how our world has changed since the hyperconnectivity that we now all enjoy. And the problem is that for us, our government structures and everything that we've come to love and have to learn to operate within, those things haven't changed as fundamentally as everything else in our lives. And the consumer is at the forefront of this. And we understand that technology is going to be able to do anything. It can deliver anything we need it to, given the right time, amount of resource, be it time or money, to actually develop it. But the consumer is the one that we have to pay attention to, because with all these wonderful things, without the consumer actually giving us the uptake that's necessary, those things are never going to work. So for me, coming all the way back down to questioning everything, if we get the opportunity to reinvent things, and we have to be very critical about, are we reinventing things for the right reason? Does it deserve to exist in the first place? That's for me where that's the stuff that I kind of...
Helena, where do you think TripAdvisor comes into this?
Well, I was going to say that's the happy memories and some not so happy memories. But it's people actually sharing and talking about what they've been experiencing, and I think that's a key thing of it. Obviously, it's still a long way to have the majority to upload content and to interact with any website. So I think that's also one thing to think, that is the audience that actually is there to share. There's still a huge amount of the people who are actually consuming the information and taking the information, but not ready yet to share it, at least in a public platform or open platform, maybe in social platforms. But I think one of the things, I don't know, William, if you agree, but any other DMO in the room, is there's so many things that need to be measured now. And all of a sudden it's gone from, I used to work in trade press on advertising, and there really wasn't any measurement. We said this many people read this newspaper, and we think 3.5 people in the agency will read it and they will see your ad. That was it. And everyone was happy with it, and they were spending money. Then we move into digital, and all of a sudden they want every single piece of analytics, every single like, every single tweet, every single review, which is great, but it's almost gone completely the other way. So there wasn't really any tracking, and now tracking has become such a major point of it. I just think that must be very confusing.
But at the same time, the key figure that's so important is still the visits to the site. And that's something which surprises me, and it's something, well, maybe doesn't surprise me actually, knowing the DMOs quite well. But that is still the key figure that people look at. So as a DMO, how can you work with your stakeholders to, I guess, re-educate them? Would you say that's something that's important?
We've decided that we want to be where consumers expect to find us, and it may not be on southafrica.net. And that's why working with TripAdvisor and Expedia, Wayne.com, and a few other big platforms are so important to us, because that's where the consumer is making their decision. Trying to put all this energy and resource into trying to redirect them to a property that we own is stupid.
Demetrius, what do you think about that? Do you think it's an old-fashioned notion that this is something that they've invested a lot in, and they need to, the DMOs still feel that sense of difficult to let go of, or do you think it's still important?
It is. It's part of the accountability, because someone said, if I give you £1, you really need to tell me what brings me back. And I think there's so many new KPIs, key performance indicators, that we need to take into consideration, that most of the stuff that people are doing for return on investment is so out of fashion. What I really look at when I'm working with hotels primarily, but also with some destinations, is advocacy. Would people become ambassadors of the destinations? Would they go to Cape Town, they come back and they always, they spread their pictures, they always see what they do, they share the message that you do. Have they got engagement? Have they got involvement? Did they have an emotional kind of experience? Because it doesn't really, a lot of those things are really about covering our backside effectively. And it's really going to the minister and say, yeah, I spent 3 million euros on TripAdvisor, and Helena was happy, but actually what happened as a result,
Very happy.
So it's kind of that kind of covering our backside. I think those people who really have vision, they understand engagement, advocacy, they understand how they would convert consumers to brand ambassadors. And I think that's the most important thing, where your consumers are going to be writing your website, you'll be creating your Pinterest boards, and they'll be saying, hey, this is the best things I've ever done. But to do that, you need emotional experiences, and you need to be able to engage with the destination at a deep level.
Aviva, Simpleview specializes in CMS and CRM, so this question is surely fundamental to what you actually provide to customers. So are you seeing a strong change in what customers are asking for, what they're expecting?
I think going back to what William was saying about you have to go where the consumers are looking for you. And building yourself a fantastic website is, of course, needed, because what you're hoping for, if you're doing everything correct, is that when you are advertising on in all these other places to engage with visitors, have a conversation, it should all hopefully lead anyway back to your website, where all of your offers and itineraries and everything that's heavy, in terms of what you offer in your destination. Because there's no way you're going to be able to fit all the content that's all rich and exciting and, all of the coupons and special offers and 3 for 2s and everything, unless you're taking a large part of somebody else's website and paying them an absolute fortune, because obviously it's a commercial endeavor, and so therefore people are going to charge you. Your website should have all this, and hopefully all roads should lead back to your website in some way, shape, or form, because the problem also is that with brand and with social media, although social media is all great and wonderful, and I mean, I don't know about, I've taken myself off Facebook, by the way. I've also taken myself off of Twitter. I really can't stand them, to be quite frank with you. I love LinkedIn. But, I think for brand building, social media, fantastic. But in terms of conversion, actual money that is generated in terms of bed nights and activities and tours, I'm not convinced. I'm really not convinced. I think it really is about building relationships through the websites, just like William was saying. He stole those words from my mouth. Where you have to go where your customer is, and it's just like if you were on the high street pre-digital. You have to you really have to go after where your customers are, and that requires good research.
But that needs to be a connected journey then, so is what you're saying. So that experience from Pinterest or from TripAdvisor needs to feed through in a coherent way.
Yes, it certainly does.
Demetrius, you had a comment?
I just, what Aviva just said makes great sense. And in fact, triggers my mind that eventually, do we really have meaningful relationships with brands? Quite often there's a young marketeer somewhere writing his little thing in the morning. Quite often we are programming all these things from the beginning of the week to appear at a particular time. Do we really have engagement at the level of engagement? And that's why a lot of people are actually leaving social media and say, can you please leave me alone? Because it's the same kind of wooden language that you do. But I'll give you a good example, because I quite often like to pick up good things. I was in Frankfurt, I think, at the Lufthansa Ambassador Club, whatever they call their thing on the airport. And they had a very nice, they call it the vitamin bar. It was a fruit juice of some kind. And I took a picture, I put it on my Facebook, I said, vitamin bar in the Lufthansa Ambassadors Club, or whatever they call it in Frankfurt Airport. That went to my Twitter account. Lufthansa picked it up immediately and replied to me, happy travels, Bukhalid. You need vitamins this time of the year. It was kind of autumn time. And that kind of thing, it's you look like authentic engagement. It was a little thing, but hey, they pick up, they had a relevant comment, a comment that made sense, a comment that added value. But quite often I see social media around the world where, we're just formulaic kind of thing, one after the other, no engagement, and it's still, we moved from traditional marketing where we had posters and whatever to the online marketing where we're showing you nice pictures, but we do not really care about what you do. And I think that's the next battleground, really. Meaningful, emotional engagement at the level that whatever you do adds value.
Yeah. But you can't do that unless you have a long-term relationship with that customer. And a DMO relationship is often a short-term customer. When the customer, and I don't even like the word customer because it's the customer of the tour operator and the hotelier, not the customer of the DMO. But hey, so let's not use the word customer, visitor. Phone water. I'm getting water thrown down me behind my back. This is good. The long-term relationship is the key part, because a DMO only gets that customer for a short period of time, has their attention prior to visit, just after destination choice, perhaps, and then they get a few months of engagement prior to the trip. But this is not how, for example, the big online travel websites think. If, for example, you have shown an interest in going scuba diving in Cancun, and then you book a trip or look like you're booking a trip in Florida, the OTA, the big travel website, knows that you have an interest in scuba and then can present to you a Florida scuba experience in some kind of form. So that long-term engagement with the customer is better than what the DMO does. The DMO has short-term engagement, so has to start from scratch every single time with that engagement. Whereas the big online travel websites are already starting at the point of knowing quite a lot of information about that particular website visitor. And so that there's a missing here. So the DMOs are fighting a battle they can't win there because they don't have that information, and the OTAs do.
So there's clearly social media is a big opportunity, but there's also big question marks about the sophistication of how DMOs are using social media and how they're actually building relationships with customers or visitors through these channels. When we surveyed the marketing directors, the vast majority said that it's a major part of their strategy now, but it's not the only tool for them. And still quite a large majority were putting social media right at the center of what they do. The vast majority have realized that social media is here, that it is something important, it is something they need to embrace. But I guess that does open up questions about how they're using social media.
If you ask a survey of marketing managers, they're going to reply they do marketing. Instead, DMOs should have training managers, and they should be enabling their local suppliers to do that social media themselves. That's the power, not the DMO doing it. So they get rid of marketing managers and employ training managers.
Do you think social media is about marketing, though? I mean, this is a fundamental question. Do you think it's about marketing or about a customer experience?
If you capture someone's email address, you can look up their various social profiles via various devices, and if you see they've got an interest in a certain kind of music and your destination is well known for that music, you can start, as soon as they visit your website and they interact with you in some way, you immediately know their interests, even though it's the first time they've been to their website, if you can backtrack via their email address. So social media is valuable just to look. You don't have to engage with someone to learn about someone, and you can automate all of that.
William, how has social media changed South African tourism's digital strategy in the last 5 years, and where do you see it fitting now? Would you put the term social media on it, or do you think that's just too simplistic?
I think everyone needs a handle to try and add, context to something to give it meaning. I think social media or marketing or advertising, all those things, really without, and again, I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record repeating here, but it's about the consumer. I think the technology really is irrelevant. Whether you call it social, whether you call it digital, or whether you call it platforms, it doesn't matter. I think ultimately it comes down to understanding what the person on the other end of the communication is wanting. And I think for us, we've got to understand that in the day and age that we live in now, it's not about how loudly we could disrupt or how loudly we could broadcast our message that we think is so important for the consumer out there to hear. I think we need to shut up and listen to what the consumers are talking about and try and engage in that conversation and somehow steer it to the point of view where we can actually start meeting the objectives that we have. Like the Prof was saying, and just Alex, I don't believe that you need to have a long-term relationship with the consumer. I think that very often if you find a point of inspiration, if you find a point of contact where you can connect with the consumer, regardless of how long they know the brand or the opportunity, I think it's beautiful that Lufthansa don't know you for who you are, but the fact that they were able to connect on that kind of level, and it wasn't about shouting out the brand message that everyone is so religious about.
Wait a second. Have you ever booked a Lufthansa ticket?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that they would have done is that handle of the tweet would have been automatically validated against the existing Lufthansa database. It would have pinged up on someone's screen, this is a regular Lufthansa flyer who has tweeted. So they know exactly who he is at the time.
But I think there are two different teams here. There's one reservation team, there's one transaction team, there's a marketing team, and there's a social media team. And I think the issue is that all those teams are not connected with each other. So they had my Twitter account, and they reply to my Twitter account, not necessarily knowing that I'm a gold card member of another airline, not necessarily knowing how much business I've given them, and I've given them plenty of business. But I think we need to connect the dots. If we really need to have engagement, you really need to understand how the customer is engaging with you at the different points of touch.
Okay, so I was just going to, sorry about that, Nick. Well, no, all I was going to say is, you see, that's just the beautiful thing, what you were talking about with those 4 departments. And what we're talking about here, do you have a Lufthansa like frequent flyer card or, whatever you call those things these days? You see, that's the thing. Lufthansa have a very, very comprehensive CRM system, a customer relationship management system, and they're all tapping into the one thing, the marketing, the social media, the reservations. Everyone is tapped into one CRM. And so therefore what happens is that each department then can tap into it and they can make reporting off of each one of those things as it's relevant. So marketing, of course, is going to do different kinds of reporting off of different demographics. Of course, social media, they're going to scrape all of the different Twitter handles that they're going to do a mass Twitter campaign. So that's the beauty of using CRM in order to really maximize engagement via social media, in order to do bookings and marketing, etc. So I just thought I'd just mention that.
But that also sounds like a massive solution. That sounds like months of planning. That sounds like having to go and beg for budget and put strategy changes in place, all that kind of stuff. Very often it's small things that you can do that make a really big impact. And you don't always have to have these long roadmaps and massive project timelines that all hang off each other, and then everything fails because you end up getting half the budget you asked for and no leniency in terms of the deliverables. So I think for us we really need to kind of stop and say, with everything that's going on at the moment, where are the opportunities, the best opportunities for us to be able to act and to be able to see what we're actually trying to achieve. The campaign work that we're doing now in social media, for us, we're trying to be more relaxed about what we're doing. We've been very stiff in our brand communication, and it's almost become a little bit contrived. You wait for the picture-perfect moment to take the photo, to get the whole family, and it has to be the right location. And that's not what consumers are drawn to. Consumers are drawn to things that are far more granular, that are far more believable. And when we find those connection points and we try and amplify those things in a way that actually will guide things into the direction that we're wanting to take things, then that's where the value lies. And it just means that you have to have people, coming back to what you're saying about those 4 different departments, the thing that makes them work well together is understanding what are the 2 or 3 important things, that common thread, that the whole business and all the agencies that you have to work with, understanding what that one thing is. Because that's what you want to be able to communicate. Whether you're a destination, whether you're a brand, whether you're a non-profit organization, I think it comes back down to listen to what people are saying, try and engage them in a meaningful way. If people speak to me as a person, I'll respond to them. If they speak to me as a brand, I shun them.
Helena, people use TripAdvisor often because they're passionate about an experience they have, so they share that, either positive or negative. But do you think brands are trying to manage the relationships they have with their visitors perhaps too much, just feeding off what the other panelists are saying?
Maybe, but I think one of the key things is to think that you can make your website and your Facebook and any kind of part of the media that you own or the environment you own online, but where you can't really track. And I think a lot of the DMOs and a lot of the companies forget that there's so much content of your actual product across various platforms. And I think that's one of the key things, that if you wanted to any kind of even brand alignment, I think brand is a difficult word with destination, because destination is all about inspiration and more like feeling than a brand. But it is still an environment online that you would like to be able to, if it was possible, to be in charge. What's been posted, what kind of images, what is the content that's been held in various platforms? Is it up to date? Is it what you want to have in there, and can you go and manage it? So rather than, what you own, you can manage. But sometimes I think people forget to look outside and go like, there's so much conversation and images and everything happening about my destination. Do I know where they are? Do I even have an opportunity to find out where they are? And if I do, can I manage that? And that brings it back to, can you, whatever you build for your brand, outside of where you manage, anything can be said and anything can happen. And so many people are reading outside of that, so you can't really keep a brand anymore where you want it to be. It's impossible.
Dimitris, what's your thoughts on it? Do you think a destination can manage its brand, and particularly with digital in the focus here?
Destination branding is something I've been fighting all my life, because a destination is not Coca-Cola. You cannot actually control all the elements. What you need to do is you need to go the opposite way. branding is something that you go from top to bottom. Destination branding needs to go bottom up. So I need to bring everybody around, all my suppliers, all my hoteliers, all the taxi drivers, restaurants, to believe the values and to believe the service that I like to offer, and to take that across all the different experiences to be consistent. And then the brand will emerge out of this. Most of the destination branding I know, it's something that came out between a conversation between the marketeer of the destination and the advertising agency who was doing that. And that's why it never works. It really needs to go bottom up, where everybody understands a few things that we do well here and actually carry them across all the activities. And the brand will emerge out of this. And what's more important for me is how your consumers are actually taking the brand personality and they are spreading it around the world. Yep. So if you go to Cape Town and you say amazing or whatever you say, that is what carries and the testimonial that the consumer is actually going to put forward, rather than what the marketeer thought about it on his office.
I think Aviva maybe disagrees.
No, quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite.
What I was going to say is I heartily agree. And more importantly, I really think that in this overwhelming age of digital, I think people are starting to rebel against all this brand stuff being forced down your throat. Yep. I mean, you know what? Okay, get out your pens and pencils, folks. I'm going to tell you what the next great thing is. Scratch and sniff. Television or media or digital, whatever it is, because that's the thing. It goes back to what Helena said about it's about experience, and it goes back to what William was saying, and also what Alex was saying. It's about feeling and what you've connected. It's the sixth sense. It's your look, your feel, your touch, all those. You know, if I see a video of kids laughing, playing on a beach, or blah, blah, blah. You know, they're doing things that I really can hook into. I see that, and I see them playing in Legoland, and, you know, Cinderella's swinging them around, and they're laughing and having a Mickey Mouse ice cream. I want to be there. But don't tell me, don't tell me that you're the most incredible destination on the planet, or don't tell me this or that. Give me those images. Give me everything I need to make me feel like I need to be there. Make me belong, and if you could do that, then you've won the battle. But brand, I'm with Demetrius on this.
Absolutely, and the thing is, quite often you get the perfect time to take the picture. Now, if anybody sees any advertising from Ireland, they'll think that's always sunshine. I went to Hawaii last year, and I can tell you from experience that one side of all the Hawaiian Islands are very, they're always sunny, they're always nice kind of weather, and they've got, in Hawaii, on all the islands, they've got about 16 micron climates. You turn around, you drive for an hour, you go up to the mountain, and the temperature drops 15 degrees and it's raining. And you go with your towels to go to the beach because nobody actually told you. Marketeers consistently lie. Yeah. Okay? So if you go to Dublin, or if you go to for enter plug, okay, make sure that you have an umbrella. Okay. If you go to a destination, don't believe the marketeers. And this is where the customers are coming back and say, you know what? This is what you promised, but this is what's the reality. And I think the minute you start going from the bottom up, understanding what's happening and celebrating what's happening, because now I was in Costa Rica about 3 months ago, and you see all this incredibly tropical kind of forest. Yes, you need rain for this. And people are very good at telling you, it's going to rain. You know, get used to the idea. And then, once you have your expectations matched with your experience, you've got a much better time because you're prepared for this. And you know that you don't bring your cameras, and if you really bring your mobile phones, they're not going to work after a couple of hours on the rainforest.
So brands have to manage the expectations.
Exactly.
They have to deliver on what they sell.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I guess, William, I know you have to rush as well very soon, so what's your experience of sort of selling a dream and actually the reality and how you can
I
not
think-
disappoint people. I guess.
Look, I think dreams are very unique to each person. And as a DMO, we need to understand what people dream about, firstly, which we don't do very well. And even when we're communicating travel and when we're trying to share destination information, it needs to be inspirational, but at the same time, there needs to be a level of information that you provide as well, because you have to be able to give them the information to act on, what you're trying to stimulate. But I think that the marketers that are doing the best job at destination marketing right now are the travelers. They're the ones that are doing the job. And for us, we need to be able to find who those people are, what are the key things that they're experiencing, how they're capturing and sharing those experiences, and see how we could learn from those things and to be able to try and amplify and add our volume to that conversation. The whole thing about destination marketing is we have to do more of the marketing. At the moment, we're doing far more of the management, which I think is where things fall flat. So we need to be able to, like the prof was saying, work from there's a groundswell out there already. We need to be able to tap into that, stimulate that, get that up, get people to actually move according to that. And if we can push that volume up, that's when the people that are doing the advocacy really well, they're already doing the engagement. They're engaging with their audiences far better than we could ever. That's where destinations need to start kind of paying attention, in my opinion.
Just before I go to you, Aviva, Alex, I guess that's the question of DMOs understanding their role in the buying cycle and the visitor planning cycle is something which you would agree with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a marketer. I think that you should only start marketing when you've got a product that is ready to be marketed, and when only 5 or 10% of your local tour suppliers have got online booking capability, and really you should not even be thinking about doing any marketing until you've addressed that, because if your product isn't bookable, you may have the best marketing in the world, but they're not going to be able to buy it. So you've got to. I think just because social media happens to have come along at a certain time doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for everyone to jump on. There are still a number of steps in the travel industry that need to be taken first before we can start jumping on this nice, new, shiny social media thing. The hoteliers have done it, the airlines have done it, but the local tours have not. And it's the local tours that people book that they will share the moments from. It's the local tours that people do, which are the memories that people have when they go. There'll be many more tweets, much more social media sharing from things that people do, not beds or their airline seat.
Aviva, any?
Okay, it's just now two things I just want to say. Again, Alex has said something which is not only correct but reversible. Not just because it's bookable doesn't mean that it's of good quality, and quality also needs to obviously be addressed, and that's something else. Again, going back to like building from the ground up, but just also what William was saying about travelers are doing a better job in many instances of getting the word out, and that's because, again, it goes back to believability. And obviously, if customers are saying, and especially customers that have a long history of credibility, if they go out there and they say, and like for me, I'll just use this as an example, we had the most wonderful family vacation. We went to Kinderhotel in Austria. By the way, that's not a plug. And we had a very great time, and these are the reasons, and here's the pictures, and look, the kids are happy. I'm going to go, So I'm going to listen to people who are like-minded, living, and I want to live the dream. I want that. And especially if I'm spending my hard-earned money, if I'm working 100 hours a week, you're straight on this. I want a really good time, and I'm going to look into it.
Okay, it's a good thing to think about there.
And I think that takes it back to the content again, because I think they don't necessarily come to the website that everyone has, and that's catch-22. You have to have a portal nowadays. If you don't have a website for your destination, it's very hard to do any social media or any kind of marketing around it. But if you don't watch what's happening with your content in there, it's quite hard to build the dream, and I think that takes it all the way back there. Whether it's bookable or not is important. It's bookable, but like you said, if it's not quality and it's bookable, but there are a lot of stuff there that should be bookable, but it isn't presented in the right way. So it's looking back, and William's done this. I'm giving William a plug now, but what they do in South Africa really well is communicate with the industry as a whole So very often its communication is with hotels and restaurants and the airlines, because those are much easier to measure. But a lot of the events that I've been part of in South Africa as well, it's the whole industry is there. It's every single level of the industry and everyone who actually meets these people. So from the drivers, from the driving companies to one-day tours, whatever it is, get those guys together, because those guys, like you said, are there. That's where people experience it. You sleep in a hotel, you have a shower. You need to get from A to B, so you fly. Mm-hmm. That's not the experience. The experience what happens when you get there. It's actually simple, isn't it?
Yeah, Dimitris.
Since Helena started saying stories, we share a story of Cape Town, down in South Africa, where who was this guy? The tour guide that they had a couple of vans and what's his name? Shahid from Cape Town, and they were absolutely fantastic because not only they created the stories, they showed people around, but they had free Wi-Fi on the van, because they realized that it's quite expensive for people to roam on South Africa, especially if they've got a mobile from Europe. And they facilitating the storytelling, and they facilitated the sharing of the stories. So they create the experience. They encourage people to take pictures and create user-generated content. And then the absolute thing that they did, and fantastic opportunity, was to facilitate the uploading of this. And they had a little discreet kind of sign: since you are using our Wi-Fi for free, would you mind tagging us in on what you are saying? And that's the best marketing campaign I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely wonderful. And the guys are doing a fantastic job. It takes a little bit of innovation. It's not rocket science. Come on, guys. Yeah. We are not dealing with cancer here. We're not dealing with space engineering. It takes a little bit of innovation, a little bit of understanding what the customers want, and providing it. It's simple.
So a bit of creativity is needed.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to say goodbye to William, and thank you very much for joining us. You have to rush to catch a plane. So thank you. So the next...
He didn't kiss me.
Do I get a high five? All right, thanks. So the last topic we're going to focus on here in this debate is mobile. And we asked the DMOs about how they were approaching mobile and how they rated their activities. And this expresses the sentiment that came from the tourist boards that we asked. So the two on the right-hand side represent views which are fairly comfortable with mobile. The strategy and planning is in place and executed well. And also the strategy and planning is in place but lacks execution. So they're getting there. But on the left side, 20% had neither in place, so no mobile strategy or activities at all. I do find that surprising, today when this is all we're talking about. And many had some plans in place, but they lacked strategy. So I guess that really demonstrates that there is a real lag when we're talking about tourist boards to, first of all, the rest of the travel industry itself, but also other sectors completely. Is that, go to you.
The majority of DMO websites answer the question, come here, welcome to XYZ destination. So the majority of DMO marketing is months or days prior to being in that destination. Mobile is, I am standing on the corner of the street, it is 12 o'clock, and I need some certain information. It's a completely different context to anything that the DMOs do. So going back to my previous point about memories, how about memories? One of the things that I would like to see DMOs doing is being able to have control of their visitors who are currently in destination. So if they see that there are lots of people currently in one park, but they know there's a free event in another park, they should be able to target and access those individual visitors who are currently in destination via their mobile device and get them to move from one park to the other. This is live control, live levers of or levers, as they say in USA. Translating here for everyone. that is what we should be seeing, because that's what's new, that's what's interesting, and that's where mobile is going to be. So if anyone does a mobile website for where do you want to go or come to this destination, that's just not the appropriate use of mobile. Mobile is going to be about getting some kind of device in the hands of customers and then exerting control over the visitors who are currently in destination and making their days more enjoyable. But that's actually going to be tough, but that's what's going to come in the next couple of years.
Dimitris.
I think Alex is absolutely right. What's happening is that most of the destinations, their preoccupation is to bring you to the destination. Come to Australia.
Yeah.
The minute you get to the airport, they just forget about you. They care about all the other guys that they'll need to bring home. And you are at the mercy of the taxi drivers, of the hoteliers, and whoever else. I think I've been, in the last year, I've been saying that the de facto marketeer of the future is the person who is going to manage the @destination Twitter account. So whoever is managing @London, @Madrid, @Spain, @Greece, is going to be the de facto marketeer of the future. Because you'll be tweeting them, you wouldn't know their email, you wouldn't use other facilities, but you'll be using your mobile to say @London, great experience, or @London, the taxi driver took me for a ride or something. So what's going to happen is that we are going to be using our mobiles to communicate with someone on the cloud. And for the time being, a lot of people are waiting to go home to write a TripAdvisor review or to add something. Increasingly, a lot of people are checking in on TripAdvisor and they write a review on the spot. Mm-hmm. And actually, TripAdvisor is not ready for that because they penalize the establishment, because they think that too many people are writing from the same IPs and they kind of say, good. But the important thing is really that whoever has got your name, whatever your name is, on Twitter is the de facto marketeer of the future.
Sorry, I do have to jump in there. We do admit that we check the IP address, and if there's a lot of reviews coming from similar IP address and we track it back to the hotel, it's suspicious, but we also look at the user journey. So we look at the behavior of that specific person who's writing from there and what they've been doing before, who they connected to, where they traveled. So it used to be very strict, and I think we learned our lesson the hard way, but we learned it, and it's now not so strict anymore. Platform TripAdvisor.
I mean, TripAdvisor is one of those good examples of a service that knows what that customer has been doing over multiple destinations. So I've been recently to San Francisco, London, Vegas. TripAdvisor knows what I did in Vegas.
Do they know everything?
Because
do they know everything?
Only what you chose to share.
And that is because they have an app called City Guides, which is actually really good, and it's pretty much the only app that you will constantly use because it's a resource. It's not just bookability, it's actually telling you information that's quite useful. So it's one of my favourite apps. Right?
Thank you.
And it alerts you when you're in a place that you should be reviewing as well, which is slightly annoying, but hey, it does that. It's quite good. And that's where they get their reviews from. That is the kind of service that a user will engage with over multiple destinations. So TripAdvisor is building a profile of your likes and dislikes over multiple cities. So as you go to a new destination, they might be able to suggest you something you do like because they already know what you liked in another city.
And Alex, I think that's a great point, which leads us to the last point, actually, which is actually about TripAdvisor. So I'm going to come straight to you, Helena. First of all, yes, you can provide all the detail about how authentic and everything is checked very thoroughly. But one of the key findings was that almost 50% when it comes to mobile, went for an all-in-one strategy. So they take the destination website and they throw it all into a mobile app, which I think between us we know is probably not the best approach. But of course, TripAdvisor is already producing the city guides and doing that very well. And there are many, many competitors providing mobile apps with city information. So do you think the DMO has just got that wrong, or do you think that's still an important role?
I think one thing that I'm very sad to say, that when we build our first 40 city guides, we got in touch with every single city for their mobile and their marketing department, and we said, would you provide us with this information, because we would like to do it together with you for completely free. You get your logo in there. We just would love you to verify some of the information. So we want to bring the user-generated content, but we wanted that information. And I don't want to shame anyone, but I have to say that it was a very, very long battle. There were cities that did it really great, but you think that we will get the traffic because we are very lucky being extremely large and having the attraction. But actually, anyone offering you that, anyone who has a bigger audience and traffic and is asking you for information, please give it. I mean, honestly, it's that time is so well spent because someone's actually doing that for you and getting your information there and wanting your information in there. So that really, it did shock me actually, quite a lot. So I think going back to your question, if someone's doing it for you and doing it properly, then just make your site mobile ready and make sure there's enough information that they get something out of it. But again, it's a huge investment to try to build something if someone else is helping you to do that.
Especially if reach and numbers is your big goal, then why not work with somebody who has a big reach? But also it's a question of, does the mobile space, and particularly the tablet, should they focus more on the inspirational value? But I'm going to go over to Aviva because she's been dying to ask a last question.
Well, no, I think actually, I think we're getting the evils now. I think we're being kicked out of the room,
yes.
So I'll be very, very quick.
We are.
Basically, what I was going to say was that so our company, and this is not a plug, it's really not, it's just information. We've done thousands of mobile sites. And of course, we can see all the stats and everything. Obviously, we can see everything that's going on, which is great because we know how to advise people. So it's all well and good having a responsive site, but that doesn't really help because you should have on there, the minute that somebody logs on to, they want information in your destination, like Alex was saying, you are either, and obviously everyone uses their mobile or their tablet for something, they're using that more and more as their primary source. It should be, are you in destination or are you out of destination? And once you're in destination, boy, are you in destination on your mobile. You have your mapping, you have overlays for attractions, accommodation, coupons, restaurants. You can actually even build an itinerary on your mobile, things that are going to help you, even linking live to taxis, things, booking your any kind of tickets when you're sitting there at a restaurant. Honey, let's go do this tomorrow. Yeah, it's on my phone. Let's book 3 tickets right there. It's really easy. This kind of stuff is what needs to happen. And that is really the great thing about mobile. It is immediate. It's in market. It's a great product, and people, a lot of these destinations, they're just like, oh, let's replicate the entire website on a phone. And it doesn't work. So, and by the way, I know for a fact we've got to leave.
That's your wrap-up video.
I think that's the wrap.
Very good points. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much to our panel. I think we should give them a big round of applause. And I think it just leaves me to invite all of you to join us in Barcelona in just 2 weeks from now, 21st, 22nd of November, for the Digital Tourism Innovation Campus. We'll have a lot more discussions like this over 2 days. It's really geared towards tourist boards, so it's very, very focused. And our partners will be joining us there. So we will have TripAdvisor, of course, Simpleview, and iFit. Are you going to join us, Dimitris?
Hope so.
Good, okay. So we look forward to seeing all of you there and connecting with you online and through social media.
Is it the same time as Focus?